Welcome to the Power of Purity podcast, the show that empowers men to experience their sexual gift in a healthier way. Now here's your host, Tony Ingracia.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Power of Purity podcast, and I really appreciate you being with me today for this episode. And I'm very excited about this episode and our next episode because I have a very special guest with us today. Her name is MJ Dennis, and she's a therapist from Austin, Texas. And MJ is totally awesome. Just trust me, you guys. When I saw some of her vignettes on YouTube and I learned a little bit about MJ, I immediately thought, man, I would love to have her as a guest. So I reached out to her, and she was kind enough to consent to be a guest. So let me just start by saying hi, MJ.
Hi. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. It's a great blessing, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to talk to you.
I'm excited about our conversation today, too.
Good. And let me just say, in the way of introduction, MJ is a licensed professional counselor. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's an AASECT certified sex therapist, and she's an APSAT certified partner trauma specialist. And MJ, with your permission, I'm just going to read a little vignette that I found, okay?
Okay.
And it says, MJ's path has led her to specialize in areas involving sexual dysfunction, sexual betrayal, intimacy discrepancies, and desire disorders. Her experience includes working as a mental health counselor, as an emergency hotline advocate, counseling patients experiencing sexual dysfunction, and helping individuals and couples work through the pain of betrayal, infidelity, and sex addiction for the Affair Recovery Center. MJ combines her experience as a sex therapist with her passion for helping couples learn to experience satisfying and healthy sexual relationships with their partners. As a partner trauma specialist, she helps sex addicts and their partners learn about healthy sexuality and how to create intimacy in their relationships. So let me just say that's totally awesome, MJ. It sounds like you are an awesome, really qualified person to speak to these issues, and you've been to a lot of school.
I've done a lot of schooling, yes. I pursued education. I always knew I wanted to be a sex therapist. Working here in Austin at Crossroads Counseling Associates, one of my colleagues is affiliated with the Affair Recovery Center. His name is Rick Reynolds. Mm-hmm. And Rick allowed me to work with his team at the Affair Recovery Center and learn their model to help couples who've experienced infidelity. And as people would they have a weekend intensive to help couples who've experienced infidelity. As people worked with Affair Recovery, they wanted to come to Crossroads and do counseling. And as I saw more and more couples trying to help them repair after infidelity, I started seeing patterns of betrayal behaviors, and I didn't know what that was. And so I leaned into learning about sex addiction. And as I was learning about sex addiction, I realized that there wasn't much education about the partner's trauma. We had some models for helping the person with the sex addiction, but I was at a loss with how to help the partner heal. I found Barb Steffens, who is the lady who developed APSATS, the Association for the Partners of Sex Addicts Trauma Specialists, and did some training with her to learn how to help heal betrayal trauma. And that felt like such a good fit to have some of the sex addiction training, but I became a specialist in helping the partners heal their trauma. And so it blended in very nicely with the sex therapy education that I had to help people not only move through the trauma of the infidelity, but then help them heal the relationship and then take them to the place of healing the sexual part of their relationship.
That is so awesome, MJ. Thank you for explaining that very beautifully. And I work with men. I have kind of a specialty working with men who are struggling with sexual issues, sex addiction, porn addiction, acting out. And of course, when this betrayal happens in the context of a relationship, it's like an atomic bomb going off in the middle of the relationship, right?
Yes.
And there's two people, the husband and the wife. For my purpose, I'm assuming that the man is the one who is the betrayer and the woman is the betrayed, although we do understand that sometimes it's vice versa, right? Sometimes the woman is the betrayer.
Yes.
But for the purpose of my metaphor here, I'm assuming that the husband is the betrayer. So he has his issues with sex. But of course, there's two people that are profoundly wounded and broken and hurt and traumatized in this situation. So we want to help both people,
Both
right?
of them. Yes.
And I thought of a metaphor one time. I was picturing, imagine that a man, and I work with these men who have sex addictions. So imagine he's driving a truck, big truck down the road, 50 miles an hour, and the steering wheel literally comes off in his hands. It detaches. And he's in this place where he has no control over this very powerful thing that's entrapped him. And so he's careening down the street and he starts smashing into other cars and hits a tree and sideswipes this and that. And he finally rolls to a stop and he climbs out and he's so thankful that he survived. And in this metaphor, I'm saying the truck represents his sex addiction. So he feels good because now I got out of my sex addiction. I'm in a better place. But what he doesn't understand is that while the truck was careening down the street, he ran over his wife with the truck. So he smashed her and mangled her and perpetrated this unbelievably horrific trauma upon her. So now he feels better because he's dealing with a sex addiction, but he looks behind him in the wake of destruction and his poor wife has been mangled. So obviously she needs help, right? And that's where you are certified to help the partner who's experiencing the trauma or of the betrayal trauma. So can you talk to us just a little bit about that? How would you put what is betrayal trauma?
So let's break it down maybe and talk about what trauma is first, and then we'll put that together with betrayal trauma.
Awesome.
So the way I understand trauma is something that happens to us that is overwhelming for we humans and that threatens our life. It's perceived as a matter of life and death. That when this event or series of events, when something happens to us, life as we knew it is over. And it's threatening and it's overwhelming. And so when our person, our spouse, betrays us, that is a trauma. That is a betrayal trauma. Because when we choose our person, one of the reasons we choose somebody is for safety.
Now, I'm assuming you're going to love me and protect me, and I can depend on you, and I can trust you, and we're in this together, and we have each other's backs, and we're going to be safe together.
Yes. But then the person has betrayed, and now the partner who has been betrayed feels unsafe in the world, feels like, I am alone. I don't know who I'm married to. I don't understand this person. And now I'm not safe anymore. The betrayal creates trauma.
That's so powerful.
Now it's overwhelming. And life as I knew it is over.
And it makes sense to me because I love the way you say that, my person, the main person in my life, my spouse, if I'm married. I'm like giving myself to this person in this relationship. Of all the people on earth, I've chosen you. I'm trusting you of all the people. So now when I discover the betrayal, it hurts so bad. If I can't trust the safest person to me, the person I trusted and hoped in and loved, and the person that I thought would be safe to me, if I can't even trust that person, then who can I trust or what can I trust?
Yeah.
I'd like to share one thing with you, MJ, that's absolutely amazing to me. The women, through our counseling group, we have a men's group that meets here in St. Louis every week for the sex addicts, the guys who are the betrayers. And then we have a women's support group called Willow Tree for the women who have been betrayed. And so they recently did an exercise in this group where they hung up, and I'm letting MJ see this. We can see each other, guys, so excuse me. But they hung up 2 gigantic poster boards, and there's like 8 women in this group, and they made a list. They identified 6 categories of losses. When you learned of your husband's betrayal, what was the loss? How many losses? And so they had 6 categories. They listed personal losses. They listed losses in my marriage, losses in my family, financial losses, losses around friendship, and then the 6th category was other losses. And guess how many losses total in those 6 categories? They worked on these losses for weeks. They came up a total, I counted them, 103 losses that they identified.
That is not surprising to me.
And when I saw that, MJ, I thought, my goodness, if these women, if they had a child die, if one of their children died, I don't know that they'd come up with 100 ideas of what I've lost.
Right.
It's unbelievable. It's catastrophic, this betrayal trauma.
Yes.
And that's why I wanted to have you as a guest, because I don't think the average man has any idea, like when he's caught, that what this does to his wife. I'm thinking I'm seeing a scale from 1 to 10, a hurt scale, a pain scale. And I think the average guy thinks, oh, my wife, caught me, I had an affair, or I've been looking at porn. She's hurt, she's upset. It's like a 1 or maybe a 2 on the scale, but it's a 9 or a 10 for her. It's not a little deal.
It might actually be a 50. It might be a 50.
Wow.
I hear over and over, Tony, women describing, after hearing of their person's betrayal, they use words like, I'm devastated. I feel like I'm dying. I can't eat. I can't sleep. The world is not safe. I shake. I have thoughts that come in my head that I don't want, and they spin and they spin, and I can't get rid of them. I'm preoccupied. I don't want to keep talking about this, but I can't think of anything else. And I hear these ladies despairing. The trauma is overwhelming. And when I'm working with partners, I often do a trauma assessment. And women experience PTSD. The betrayal trauma it mimics in many ways, has the same characteristics of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD.
Key word being the T, the trauma. It's literally a traumatic experience.
Trauma.
Wow.
Yes. And so many ladies will say, why do I feel this way? And I say, because you've been traumatized. This is what trauma looks like.
I can only imagine that is so helpful for these women, because in my experience, they think they're going crazy. They literally think they're going crazy. They don't know what's going on. And when you explain there's a reason you're going crazy, you're suffering right now from trauma. this is a catastrophic event and it produces these results. I was going to ask you, how does betrayal trauma affect a person? And you're beginning to describe. I understand that it manifests in the physical body. These women say, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I throw up, I get constipated, I have night sweats, I get muscle cramps. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The trauma is so severe, it's incomprehensible.
Yes. There's a list of ways that trauma impacts a human. Often I hear women, and I work with both betrayed partners, both genders. So this is not gender specific.
Okay, good. That was going to be one of my questions. Does betrayal trauma affect men and women differently?
So I'm going to say yes and no. The yes part is biologically, both genders are impacted on a physiological, in a physiological way very similarly, right? And let's talk about the brain for a moment, right? The brain has a part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of the brain that detects danger or threat. When the amygdala gets activated and the brain says, oh no, danger, it will send out the signal so that adrenaline will course through a human's body.
Right, I see the bear, my body pumps adrenaline so I can run and try to get out of here now.
Right. The adrenaline will help us either fight the bear or run from the bear or freeze, like playing possum, and hope the bear doesn't get us. But the way adrenaline feels in our body, adrenaline will increase our heart rate, which makes our blood pump faster. As our blood is pumping faster, we heat up and our breathing changes, right? We don't need to take long, deep breaths and go, oh, I think that bear's coming. I wonder if he's dangerous. No. The adrenaline helps us to stay safe. So our breathing changes and we only breathe from the top half of our lungs so that all of our resources go toward the center of our body. So we heat up. People have panic attacks or they have hot flashes. They feel overwhelmed as the adrenaline is coursing through their bodies. People will, because they are now in survival mode, certain bodily functions shut down, such as hunger. If we're trying to survive danger, we don't have an appetite often. We don't need to eat a big meal because we're running from the bear.
Absolutely. We're too distracted by the crisis of the moment to think about eating a hamburger.
Right. And adrenaline impacts the digestive tract. And so adrenaline can, for some people, impact their esophagus. They might feel heartburn or reflux. Sometimes adrenaline impacts the stomach, where we'll feel nauseous or have stomach pain. Sometimes it impacts the lower part of our digestive tract. So some people get upset stomachs. Some people, those lucky people, they get everything. It impacts the whole entire digestive tract. And so, of course, they feel terrible. And I was thinking also in this place, when we discover our person has betrayed us and our amygdala says, oh my gosh, danger, danger, my person just betrayed me. I'm alone in the world. What just happened? And we get hit with all of this adrenaline and our heart rate's beating faster. Then to try to sleep becomes really difficult, right? Because we've got all this pumping. And so to lay down and rest, often betrayed partners are absolutely exhausted, but then they can't sleep. It's like the gas pedal's on, and even though their body is fatigued, they have trouble getting to sleep or they have trouble staying asleep.
Wow. So
it becomes a real vicious cycle of fatigue and adrenaline. And then, of course, that impacts, as we know, stress impacts our ability to concentrate or to think. And so now we have betrayed partners who feel like they're dying. who are overcome with fear, who have thoughts in their head that they don't want to think, but they can't stop. And their bodies are wrecked. They can't sleep, they can't eat. And it's really just a crisis.
Wow. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And this isn't necessarily an event. It's a process. It's not like I feel all this today, but what if you feel that way, not for a day, but for weeks and weeks or months at a time, or even years at a time, that a person gets stuck in this place where the trauma is ongoing. It's not like, it's kind of like when they say, if you burn yourself real bad and you take your hand out of the fire, they say it keeps burning.
Yes.
Even though your hand's out of the fire, but it's still burning you. So the trauma, even though, let's say that Mrs. Jones discovers the betrayal on this day, Tuesday. That's the initial burn.
Right.
But the burn doesn't just last that day. It keeps burning over time.
Correct. I often see, and this is another really heartbreaking part of the impact of betrayal trauma, is that I so frequently see people who've experienced betrayal get sick. I see a lot of autoimmune disorders happen. There's a high rate of people who experience vitiligo, developing lupus, what's that called? Ankylosa spondylitis, it impacts the spine and the back. So the body ends up, the immune system often becomes compromised, and these conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, these conditions develop. And they will develop months and sometimes years after discovery of the betrayal.
Wow.
And so it really highlights how very, very necessary it is for the betrayed partner to get trauma work. Not only counseling, the counseling is vital. Being in a support group, vital. And extremely necessary for a betrayed partner to seek out a therapist who knows EMDR or ETT, which is my favorite. It's called emotional transformation therapy. These forms of trauma treatment are absolutely crucial.
I'm certified in EMDR myself, but can you tell us just a little bit about ETT? What is that modality? How does it work?
So Tony, I do EMDR as well. However, ETT, this emotional transformation therapy, is so effective and efficient, and I don't even do EMDR anymore because I don't need to.
Wow.
I thank you, God. I'm so fortunate that I've been able to be trained in this. The concept is, the science behind it is, by manipulating the colors and the light that someone sees while they are talking about their distress, we can reduce and sometimes eliminate their emotional pain and their physical pain.
Wow, no kidding.
That's
Fascinating. It's something to do with the human brain, or what's being processed through the eyes and the brain.
Yes.
Do we understand how or why it works?
Yes. So I wish I was a great scientist who could give you all the nuances, but I'm going to give you the MJ.
Well, then we wouldn't understand it. Yeah, we need the first grade version.
So 80% of our data about the world comes in visually, right? The other 20%, olfactory, auditory, tactile, right? But 80% of our data comes in through our eyes, goes to the central processing station in our brain, and gets distributed into emotions and thoughts.
Okay.
Therefore, if we can manipulate either the direction that light comes into the eyes or the colors that someone is seeing, we can actually reduce their emotional content.
Wow.
Now, because I'll say it this way, and you know this, emotional pain manifests physically.
Yes.
Therefore, all physical pain has emotional content to it. When we are working with a client and using the ETT modalities, it's twofold. They will talk about their emotional distress and they'll feel it in their body. For example, I worked with a partner just recently. She was talking about her despair around her sexually addicted spouse. And as she was talking, she felt tension in her neck. And so I showed her, as we were talking, I had her look at the color blue. Blue is correlated with lower jaw and neck to upper shoulders. As she talked about her distress, the pain in her neck went away.
Wow.
But she felt pain in her lower back. I had her look at red as she talked about loss. And as she talked about it, the pain in her lower back went away.
Wow, MJ, this is fascinating.
Truly amazing. I have a client who says, thank you, Jesus and ETT.
There you go. Praise God. Let me just say that I didn't expect to talk about ETT. It's fascinating, but I trust that this came out for a purpose. And for those that are listening to this episode, maybe this is for somebody to check this out, ETT. Maybe it's something that God has for you and that you can use on your own healing journey. I wanted to say, guys, just a word. The reason that I wanted to host MJ and have her as a guest, I feel like this is incredibly important for two reasons. For guys that are listening to this or gals that can relate to this because they're in the situation. There has been betrayal in the context of your relationship. I have no doubt that you can identify with this concept of betrayal trauma, and it will help you begin to get a framework around the dynamics of the crazy stuff that's been happening in your relationship and the reactions and the apparent paranoia and upset and mistrust, and it explains why this is so significant and powerful. So I hope that it informs people who need to understand this. It helps you understand your situation. It's going to help you be empathetic toward your spouse. It's going to help you make sense of the healing journey that you're in the middle of. But the second thing that I'm hopeful, that if there's a listener to this podcast who thinks, I'm not sure I even need to listen to today's episode, Tony, because I've been faithful to my spouse. We're not experiencing betrayal trauma. This doesn't really relate to me. Well, let me tell you how it relates to you. I hope that by listening to this, it scares the heck out of you to realize the profound implications of betrayal and why it's so incredibly important that spouses be faithful to one another. They honor that commitment. And dude, if you start cheating or messing around with your sex stuff, you're getting out there, you're acting out in inappropriate ways. If you get caught, I'm telling you, you're playing with a loaded gun here, and you do not want to bring this betrayal trauma into your relationship and your marriage because it's profound. So I hope in a way that this discussion scares people.
And really gives them eyes. Sometimes people will think, my behavior doesn't impact others. What they don't know won't hurt them. And you're affirming betrayal does impact people, right? It impacts us. It impacts the person who is doing the betraying, and it absolutely impacts the person who is being betrayed.
Yes. So here's a big question.
Okay.
And I'm interested to hear how you're going to respond. And I'm assuming there's a positive, hopeful answer because of what you do, okay? My question is this: can betrayal trauma be healed in the context of a broken relationship? And what does that look like? What does the process look like? Let's say somebody got caught cheating, acting out. The betrayal has happened. The atomic bomb has exploded in the middle of the relationship. And now the crisis has happened. What do people do? How do they join a process? Where do they go? Can betrayal trauma be healed?
So, can betrayal trauma be healed? Absolutely yes.
Yay! Thank you, God. There's hope.
Yes. I would not do this job if healing couldn't happen. Right? I would not spin my wheels. I do this job because I see healing happen every day.
Awesome.
I have the privilege of having this job, of being able to work with people and assist them, walk with them as they heal. So yes.
Okay, stop there a minute. I want to say something, but then I want you to continue. And what I want to say is I want to speak to our listeners.
Yes.
What MJ just said is so significant, you guys. If you're in a difficult situation, a troubled situation, if betrayal has happened, the atomic bomb has exploded, whatever's going on, don't give up. There is hope. MJ Dennis, who is the professional, she is a certified partner trauma specialized, a certified sex therapist, a licensed marriage and family therapist. She knows what she's talking about, and she just told us that there is hope, and there is healing, and there is possibility. I'm assuming, MJ, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy.
No.
But it is possible.
Yes. And let me give a framework on time. We're seeing that it takes an average of 3 to 5 years for a couple to recover after infidelity.
And that's assuming that during those 3 to 5 years, they're doing the work, they're going to therapy, they're doing the work, and they're changing, and
yes,
and they're getting healthier.
Yes.
Just time alone won't heal it.
No.
I'm not going to go to counseling. I'm not going to read books. I'm not going to do anything, but I'll wait 5 years. And MJ said in 5 years we'll be better.
No.
It isn't time alone. It's doing the work during those 3 to 5 years.
Yes. Yes. And let's also say that doesn't mean it's going to be terrible until 3 years. It's not going to be bad the whole time. There will be, high points and low points. It ebbs and flows. The feeling of how good or how bad it is as they're moving through those 3 to 5 years. And that is expected.
I wonder if a lot of guys would be surprised by that. Let me just say that I'm not at all. And I would have anticipated that you would say exactly that, 3 to 5 years. I've learned that in my own experience. And I think a lot of guys especially are naive because when they get caught, I've literally been in session and had men say, like, to their wife, it's been 4 months. It's been 4 months. Like, get over it. How long do we have to talk about this? Like, dude, you don't have a clue what's going on here. You don't understand betrayal trauma. You don't understand how hurt she is. You don't understand the value of trust and how long it takes to rebuild trust. So we're not signing up for weeks or months here. We're signing up for not a sprint, a marathon.
Yes.
3 to 5 years. We're going to be working on this.
Yes.
Hey guys, I hate to do it, but I see from the clock that we're out of time for today's podcast episode. So I'm going to jump in here and interrupt, but I want to invite you to come back next week as we continue with part 2 of this fascinating interview with MJ Dennis. I'm sure that if you're like me, that you've been very blessed by the things that she's sharing, and I promise you next week is going to be awesome. So I'll look forward to seeing you right back here next week. In the meantime, be blessed, have a great week, have a great day, and I'll look forward to seeing you then. God bless you guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for listening. Visit powerofpurity.org for more resources and information. And if this podcast has been helpful or encouraging, please invite a friend to listen. Until next time, remember, there's power in purity.